Welcome,
I was like,
everyone. As you start rolling in, it looks like we've got a few folks joining us, which is great. We love on-time humans. We have Mapsy, Nikolai. Everyone, as you start loading into the webinar, what we'll be using today, if you have questions throughout the webinar, is the chat feature. So please feel free to open up that chat feature. Really important, what we'll be focusing that chat feature on is questions for PJ and Ruthie specifically. We will have a Q&A at the end of the event, and they'll be pulling questions from there. But we are very excited to see you all here. I will, if you've ever been to a Flybook webinar before, I will do another few minutes of saying hi as people roll in, and then we'll get things going so that we know everyone could load in as they would like to. I do think 2025 goal is gonna be some epic hold music for the awkward part of a webinar where you're like, we're here, but not everyone is. We just have to figure out what it's gonna be.
some solid elevator music.
Yeah, exactly. Just lean in all the way. Uh, Perfect. Got a few more folks rolling in as we would expect. I'll probably give it 2 to 3 more minutes before we get rolling. But again, welcome to everyone that is here. We're really excited to spend the next hour or so with you, with Granite Insurance as well. And Kelly from the advisory team will be in the chat, which will be fun as well. Perfect. And you can see Kelly put that intro message in the chat. We will be using that for questions throughout the webinar. We will have a Q&A at the end. I'll go over details in a moment, but please feel free to hop in there. I believe Ruthie and PJ, one of the things we wanted to do is just have folks introduce themselves, where they are, where they're coming from, so we can really get a feel for everyone that's here with us this morning. So as you get settled in, I have my coffee. I am ready to listen. If you want to introduce yourself and say where you're from and a little bit about your business, please feel free to start to do so. We'll get rolling here probably in the next minute or so, so that we can take advantage of the full time we have together. Well, as we formally begin, I want to welcome everyone to Flybook's fall webinar. We are so thrilled to be partnering with Granite Insurance for this webinar. Before I hand things over to PJ and Ruthie, couple logistics to cover. If you've been here since the top of the hour, 1, congratulations for being incredibly on time. 2, we will be using the chat throughout this webinar for you to post your questions for Granite Insurance there. Of course, if you have any Flybook questions as well, the advisory team is here to help. We'll be taking your questions and following up with you one-on-one. We do have a wide variety of businesses that are coming today. So if you have a very niche question specific only to you, Ruthie and PJ will be providing their contact information for you to reach out directly at the end of the presentation. If you have a broader question that would serve the whole group, please absolutely take advantage of that chat feature and drop it in there so that they can answer it during the Q&A session. They'll be pulling directly from the chat to answer those questions. Again, we are thrilled to have you here. We are thrilled to hear Granite's presentation. I got a small sneak peek and it's wonderful. So I will hand things over to PJ and Ruthie now. And of course, throughout this, continue to post in that chat area, and Kelly from the advisory team will be there to help you out.
Thank you guys so much. So my name is PJ Hennessy. I am the program business specialist in our adventure and entertainment division here with Granite Insurance. I've been with the company for the past 4 years, and mainly I work with operators and businesses all across the spectrum of what we consider adventure and entertainment all over the country. That can be anything from an aerial park to an outfitter and guide, bike rentals, climbing gyms, family entertainment centers, anything that's fun, outdoors, indoors, a little risky, a little exciting. That's where we kind of hang our hat. And really my area of specialty is helping those new ventures or those small businesses get off the ground with their insurance program and really model and focus on growth in their first several years in business. So I'll pass it over to Ruthie to give a little more insight on what she does for us.
Hey everyone, my name is Ruthie Rivers. I'm the adventure and entertainment risk consultant for the Granite team. My last name works really well because I head up our agency's river outfitter division. So specifically focus with working with river outfitters, but I also work with other adventure and entertainment clients as well. Before coming to the insurance side of things, actually came from the aerial adventure industry. I managed an aerial adventure park and zipline tour here in North Carolina, where we're based. So I was a client of Granite Insurance, and coincidentally, I was also a client of Flybook at the time. So know and love this team that we're working with today too. And I'm passionate about the adventure industry. Really, I consider myself an outdoor professional first and an insurance professional second. If it wasn't for this specific role at this specific agency, I wouldn't be in insurance. I would be in the outdoor industry doing something else. So it's a really great way to kind of combine both of those worlds and serve the adventure industry that I'm so passionate about.
Yeah, so I just want to give you guys a little background. Who is Granite Insurance if you're not familiar with us coming into the call today? So basically for the first 75 years, we were founded in 1936. Think of us as your small town, stereotypical Main Street insurance agent that focused on, home, auto, small businesses in our local community here in Western North Carolina. And that's really what we hung our hat on until 2014, where our leadership team really identified a need in what we consider adventure and entertainment and setting up our adventure and entertainment division. And then the fact that most of the people on this call today and the operations that encompass that division are underserved when it comes to insurance and risk management. And it's one of the biggest pain points that you guys have. So we've been able to really hang our hat on that, recognize that, and become partners with a lot of amazing clients and partners in the industry. And really to that point where since 2014 to 2020 and then today, we've seen the huge growth for our company in working with so many folks in the adventure and entertainment space, where we now have 3 offices throughout Western North Carolina, and went from a hometown agency to a national agency serving clients in all 50 states. And again, our areas of focus are what you see there on the slide, but anything fun, exciting, a little risky, we love to come in and be that partner for you and really manage your insurance program from top to bottom.
So we'll start with just kind of an outlook on the insurance industry, what kind of the current landscape has looked like these last couple of years. So the insurance industry as a whole has been in what we refer to as a hard market. The way that's going to be characterized is you're going to see premium increases each year from carriers. You are going to see times where it's difficult to get coverage at all. You're going to see where there are few carrier options, especially as you're adding more different types of activities. Or as you have claims potentially, you get non-renewed potentially by your current carrier, and it's really hard to find a carrier that is out there and does have interest in insuring a business with what we call just inherently more kind of dangerous activities. It's going to be most difficult to be in a hard market for businesses that are smaller or newer. So on the smaller side, carriers want to see a certain amount of premium from you in order to make sure that they can remain profitable as a business. For accepting that higher level of inherent risk, they want to see that there is premium that kind of outweighs that for them. They also are going to have trouble with newer operations because you might not have that kind of management experience on your team. Being in an inherently risky industry, they want to see that you have experience running these types of trips or running these types of operations, and that you're going to do a really good job of mitigating that risk. Operations with a high variety in adventures offered, that's going to be difficult as well. So we'll talk in a moment about what we call carrier appetite, but carriers develop a level of comfort with kind of one thing at a time. And so when we're talking about inherently risky industries and activities as a whole, just because they're interested in zip lining doesn't mean that they're necessarily interested in rafting. They need to take the time to really sit and get comfortable with that and get well informed before they are able to feel comfortable with that. So if you as an operation have a ton of different activities that you're offering, it's going to be really, really difficult to find one carrier that has put in the time to get comfortable with all of those different types of operations. And then if you have had either a high severity claim, like let's say a fatality potentially, or if you have a high frequency of claims, even if they're just low severity, like like a broken finger or something, right? If you have a lot of little things, either of those, high severity or high frequency of small things, those are both red flags to carriers. So it's going to be difficult, especially for those kinds of operations, to be in a hard market as well. PJ, what would you add to that?
I think you had touched it all. I think we'll get into some more specific items on that as we get into the additional slides. And so one thing I want to look at, and I know there's a few of you on the call that are specifically lodging operations, or perhaps your operation overall is looking to add Airbnb or whatever the case may be. So really want to spend a couple minutes on giving you guys some insight. So obviously we kind of break this into two categories. One is your property and your liability. So for property, obviously for lodges and out in the space in the wilderness, you're going to be susceptible to the environment, whether that is your property is right next to a river, or you are 10 miles from the nearest fire department, that type of thing. So those are all very unique circumstances that we see when it comes to lodging operations that from your standpoint, you can look to be proactive in saying, okay, what do I need to consider to adequately protect my property, and then what challenges are we going to see in the insurance marketplace because of that. And then the history of property insurance in the United States more or less has always come down to what we consider a fire protection, in the sense of, hey, how easy is it for a particular structure to burn down, and then if it is on fire, how quickly can someone get to that fire to put it out. And that tends to range on a scale of 1 to 10. With 9 and 10 being the worst, and 99% of lodging operations I would consider to be in that category. So it's good to know, kind of going into it, hey, what else can you do to protect your property, whether that's installing sprinkler systems or working with your local fire departments to specifically address water sources near your property, that type of thing. And then also, especially out west right now, wildfires, what does your wildfire score look like? And then, hey, how close you are to a body of water? Do you need flood insurance? And obviously what we've seen here in Western North Carolina the past couple of weeks, a lot of people are really looking at that question with a second opinion than they have in the past. So just kind of keeping that in mind and what that entails for specific operations and properties has led to more unique solutions being brought to the table to make sure those properties are protected. And then obviously on the liability side, there are certain things that you may want to add into your activities or your operations that may bring in some additional traffic, but understanding that some of those things that you can see listed there may entail a higher premium just to add that one activity, that amenity. So keeping that in mind and having that conversation with your broker before adding it is very important for managing your insurance program, both from a cost and coverage standpoint. But again, what it comes down to and what we see more and more for our clients these days is just having to have a very unique approach to protecting that, whether that's piecing out one part of your operation on its own policy, or even parametric insurance, which is basically instead of if your property has actually suffered a loss or not, it just defines and pays out based on certain conditions that are met in an event or severity of a hazard, such as a wildfire or a flood or a river cresting to a certain height, or so many acres of a wildfire, that type of thing. So just kind of know we're kind of right now, and what we'll talk about is the insurance cycle. We're definitely still in a challenging point in that cycle right now, but hopefully there's going to be relief and more options on the table in the coming years. So in that sense of, okay, we've kind of talked and been a little doom and gloom so far on hey, things aren't looking great in the insurance marketplace for this industry. Yes and no. Yeah, I think we were touching on the natural market flow and what people see, but the biggest thing and what we want to do and advocate for our clients and for folks in this industry is just understand that there is really just 4 or 5 to 5 to 10 insurance carriers that are comfortable with these kind of operations. And really it's our mission to identify them and then work with them, partner with our clients, partner with the insurance carriers to make sure they understand what it is you guys offer, what your investment in safety is, and really separate the top tier operators from the few, 1 or 2 operators that are a little bit more reckless and careless that are really dragging down the rest of the industry, to where we're hopefully going to take this to industry and the insurance marketplace to a much better space over the next several years. This gives you an idea of what we're seeing in the insurance cycle. So you can kind of see over time, like, gosh, my premiums now compared to 5 years ago are double or triple, or maybe you have higher deductibles that are required, this type of thing. And it's all part of the insurance cycle. And that kind of gives you an idea of, okay, hey, where are we in this cycle? In a best case scenario, we want to be in a cycle where we are in one of those blue arrows. And we're going to definitely get to that point as things continue to improve. Insurance carriers continue to understand this industry more and more. But as it sits right now, I would say depending on your operation and, which carrier you're with, you're anywhere from that red arrow to that green arrow right now.
And PJ, you just kind of touched on it, but I just want to emphasize a lot of times we get questions from outfitters asking about the insurance carrier marketplace as a whole. But the reality of it is different carriers are going to be on kind of different timelines on this insurance cycle. They're going to have different levels of comfortability with different kinds of operations. They're going to deal with different operations differently, right? They might have one set of kind of rules to be eligible for their program versus another carrier is going to have a different set of rules to be eligible. So for ease of this conversation, we're talking about so far the marketplace as a whole, but your carrier specifically might be in one different place on this cycle versus another one. So continuing just discussion on the carrier marketplace as a whole. So we put together this just kind of visual to help you understand exactly what we're looking at in the insurance marketplace. So when we are talking about all of the insurance carriers out there, right, you're thinking on personal side, like homeowners or autos, and then you've got business. So carriers that might insure like a flower shop or an accounting firm or whatever, right? All of the insurance carriers out there. Let's just put a number of 1,000 on that, right? And then we're talking about appetite. And what I mean by appetite is a carrier that has taken some time to get comfortable with a certain type of operation. That means that they have appetite for that operation. They've gotten comfortable with it, and they are willing to offer an insurance solution to that industry or to that type of operation. So we've got all of the insurance carriers, 1,000. And then when we're talking about adventure operation appetite, we're going to shrink that pool of carriers down to, let's say, maybe 10. And it might be generous depending on what you've got going on. But so let's say 10 with adventure appetite as a whole. But then when you really start to take a look at those 10 insurance carriers, you're going to find a lot of variety in what they're willing to offer and how they're willing to offer it. So there are carriers that might be willing to offer you a quote unquote insurance policy for your operations. But when you really dig into that policy and understand it, it might have a $10,000 sublimit on if somebody gets injured instead of paying out the full million. That's something that we see fairly often, actually. It might have part of your operations excluded. It might say, river operations are excluded or zipline operations are excluded. I'm using those two examples, but we see all kinds of different operations excluded from programs. There are all kinds of ways that they can whittle down coverage and still quote unquote give you an insurance policy where you can issue a certificate of insurance and say, yeah, I have insurance. But in reality, if you have an accident happen, that policy is not going to cover you at all, or it might not cover you very much for that incident. So that's what we're looking at with adventure appetite. There are ones that are going to provide more respectable and reputable coverage, and then there are ones that aren't going to as well. And then we kind of whittle that down even further to the preferred, right? So we're weeding out those carriers that are not really providing fantastic coverage. And we get down to maybe 5. So we're in that yellow category, maybe 5 preferred carriers that have that adventure appetite. And then when you talk about the different kinds of adventures that you're actually offering, right? So let's say maybe you do whitewater rafting and you dip into some class 5 operations. Let's say you do UTVs or ATVs or snowmobiles, or let's say you have equine operations with horses, right? Those are all getting into really niche specialties that are a little, even a step higher on the risk level. And typically you're going to have very few carriers. It might just wind up being one carrier for some of those kinds of operations. So it whittles down really, really quick depending on what you have going on. So your ultimate program, depending on the kinds of operations you're running, might wind up, hopefully you have one carrier in that kind of yellow category that's willing to offer a program for everything. Or sometimes you might have different programs put together by different kind of carriers in that green circle, right? They have a specialization in equine, or they have a specialization in whitewater with appetite to go up to class 5, or whatever you guys have going on. So this is talking appetite so far, right? This is just saying we want insurance carriers that provide good coverage, that have appetite for these adventure operations. But on the left-hand side of this slide here, you can see there are other things that we're looking at, right? So appetite is that first one. And not only do they exist there already, but another thing that we're looking for is, can we develop more carriers to bring in, right? Through education, through partnering with these carriers and really developing a relationship with them and developing a level of trust. Can we bring more into that circle? Second thing, past appetite, is that just coverage competitiveness, and not just competitiveness as we're looking at bringing in potential new carriers. We don't just want to compete with what the status quo is right now, but we really want to look at improving that as time goes on, and bettering it for you guys as operators. And then, of course, the price piece comes into the conversation, right? That's super crucial with insurance conversations. It's a big part of your annual budget. And so not only are we looking for appetite and then competitiveness and improvement on coverage, but we also want them to be competitive on the price as well. So these are all kind of things that we're looking at, but different tiers of the project as we're looking at bringing in a new carrier to the industry. So over the last several years, PJ mentioned we have been in the adventure and entertainment kind of niche nationwide for something like coming up on 15 years now. And through our time in this industry, we developed really good relationships with certain carriers, and we use that to kind of bridge their gap into other industries, adventure industries that we want to work with them in. We have been working on developing these new carrier markets for the industry, and PJ mentioned some of these earlier. These are kind of the adventure operations that we have been targeting primarily with our work in the last 5 years, especially. And we're continuing to grow this into other guides and outfitters moving forward as well. But these have been kind of our primary areas of focus. We have added several carrier markets over the last few years. Currently, we have one specific kind of leading program that provides the most opportunity for outfitters. And we'll call that carrier market EUM. This is a program that we have hand built with the carrier, and we have developed a really high level of trust. They look at us as the experts in all of these different industries. We have different people that provide that specialization on our team. And we're continuing to improve this program with them over time. And it's a really cool and very unique structure to what the insurance industry has seen in the past. So this program initially was rolled out in spring of 2024. And like I said, it's completely being added to and updated over time. But one of the things that we've tried to do with this program is develop a really clear tier structure for different industries. So this might be an example. This is oversimplification, just to clarify, this is very simplified, but this is like an example tier structure for an aerial adventure park or zipline tour, right? They're the carrier, and we have developed this tier structure of, okay, what is unacceptable in an aerial adventure zipline operation to fit into this new program? What is acceptable, but it's not really like top tier structure when we're looking at risk factors that might kind of show your operation as high risk or low risk. And then ideally, what is your preferred zipline aerial adventure operation look like? And those ones are going to wind up getting the best rate from the carrier when you're looking at pricing on your insurance program. So some examples, let's say you have an at height zipline operation, and you don't use harnesses. That's not going to be an acceptable type of operation to fit into this program, right? That just shows way too much risk to be acceptable into this program. Acceptable might be you use a seat harness or a 3-point harness, versus preferred, if you have a participant go upside down and their kind of waist loosened a little bit, you want that 5-point harness ideally. That kind of ups your risk mitigation by having a 5-point harness coming over your shoulders as well. Or another example I've got here is if you have no management experience on the team, you've never ran a zipline operation or aerial adventure operation, you just saw it one day and thought it would be cool, and you didn't bring in any experience on your management team either. You just hired people off the street, no experience running this type of operation. That's going to be unacceptable into this sort of program. We want to see some experience first, whether it's you on the ownership team or your management team as well. Versus acceptable might be 2 to 5 years, or preferred is going to be 5 years plus of management experience, where you've kind of developed some expertise over time and really know what you're doing at that point. And what this tier structure brings to the table is it really allows your investment into risk management best practices to bring premium savings. It's going to be a more tangible thing. So let's say that you are entered in this program, and then it comes up for renewal next year. And you are having conversations with us saying, hey, listen, like I love this program. I'd love, this happens every year with renewal conversations. Like, what can I do to save some money this year, right? We can look at this tier structure that's a lot more built out than just 2 items on it. And we can say, okay, in this category, you fall into acceptable. In this category, you fall into preferred. In this category, you fall into acceptable. We can go down that list and we can say, these are the areas that you have for improvement. These are the areas where you're in the acceptable category. And we can work to move you into that preferred category by making those investments into your risk management practices. And then you will receive premium savings as you're working towards renewal with the carrier. So it really puts you more in control of your premiums and gives you the ability to play an active role in lowering your future rate.
Thanks, Ruthie. So all that to say, okay, what can you do, right? So the first step is, we've got a lot of different operations, a lot of different folks on the call today. And so, one size does not fit all for those programs for your operation, right? There may be a million different things that are going on, not a million, but a couple different things going on with your operation to say, okay, we want to put you in the best fit as your partner, as your broker, setting expectations on, what the marketplace looks like. I don't want to oversell you and say, oh yeah, we've got 10, 20 options. There may only be 1 or 2 options, right? And you're so trained kind of going into the conversation if you're not used to purchasing insurance for an adventure and entertainment type of operation, when every other commercial you see on TV is 15 minutes, 15% savings, quick, easy, and that's all that matters. It's just a completely different process and conversation in this industry. So really just understanding that the more you can do up front and to kind of be proactive in risk management and preventing an incident from occurring, and then when an incident occurs, how you respond to that and how you pull that together in your documentation, in your training of your staff, in your orientations, all of those things that you think about is going to be directly translated with the results that you get back from the insurance marketplace. So just understanding that it's a lot of information, it is a time commitment, but at the end of the day, it's going to pay off and have that direct correlation with what insurance coverages you're able to obtain and what that cost is.
Yeah, and I would just emphasize so much of this process, guys, is us working with you to develop the story of your operation and the story of the narrative of how well you mitigate risk, and then taking that and selling you to the carrier. This isn't something where we just kick it over to the carrier and it's like, yeah, okay, here's a quote. It is a lot of arguing back and forth with the carrier and providing, backup on certain conversations. And really so much of our job is educating the carrier and convincing them that you are a responsible operation. So we need a lot of your help, as PJ was saying, in order to create that narrative accurately. And one of the ways that you can help us is by having really well built out SOPs or standard operating procedures.
That is one of the reasons that we are so excited to be partnered with Granite Insurance and have them here today. You can see here some visuals from Flybook of tools and features that you may already be taking advantage of in the system, but you absolutely can leverage, speaking directly to those standard operating procedures that they recommend and painting the narrative for everyone. So we have a very high level client participation report that's going to say, hey, Martha went on a rafting trip on September 1st, and then you can dial it even further with your post-trip forms, which your guides fill out. So that's that staff training. You go, yes, we know Martha did this on this date, but we also know we had to pull out a med kit and use a Band-Aid because she got a scrape. Very simple, even those basic details. Your guides are equipped and empowered to report out on every single little piece of the story. So we know your entire customer journey is documented top to bottom, so that when you come to Ruthie and PJ and you say, hey, it's time for renewal, we want a better rate, we want to know what we can do to improve our current financial output when it comes to insurance, you can literally hand over the narrative of what your customer journey is for each and every person that walks through your door. Of course, also our waivers are there. We have pre-booking questions where customers can have another space where they acknowledge what skills they need, what risk there may be. And then this spring, we really did, and we always do this as your software company, but a day-to-day that your team can build processes around is what our development is focused on. We really want our development to have you teach the story and build processes for your team. We're really excited about the features that are here that you may already take advantage of, but also our updates to event linking and a lot of other things that we've recently changed. So please reach out to the advisory team if you have any questions that are software specific. I will hand it back over to PJ and Ruthie. It looks like not a ton of folks had questions as we went through the presentation. So if you do have questions now that you would like us to tackle, PJ and Ruthie are here for the next couple of minutes with us, which is great. And you can drop those into the chat and we will tackle them. It looks like we had one come through, PJ and Ruthie, if you want to step back in for Shanti's question.
Yeah, and I would just add to this slide as well, real quick, Lindsay. This isn't something we touched on before, but it just kind of came to mind. Things like accident reports, or where you have issued a Band-Aid to somebody, you had a minor cut. If you are utilizing Flybook to document these sort of things, or anything in here in this example, one of the benefits of this is having things time-stamped versus having things written on a piece of paper incident report for kind of minor injuries. If you were to get taken to court or brought into a lawsuit, having things time-stamped is going to be super beneficial. And also, I mean, just in the wake of the natural disaster that we just had here in Western North Carolina, if you think people were using paper waivers or paper incident reports or anything like that, a lot of people lost that kind of stuff in flooding. So there's another benefit to having things in a digital format as well. That brings a lot of value. So yeah, perfect. Let's see. We have one question here so far. PJ, I'll ask you this one. Can we get a contact for this company? We're looking at changing to a new carrier. It just doesn't really feel like they know the outdoor industry, and we're just a small company.
Yeah, so thanks, Shanti. So actually saw I got passed along their website information. So I think that's, yes, we can definitely help. That's kind of more of a one-to-one conversation after the webinar. So I'll reach out to you directly and we'll schedule a time to chat more further. But I think that's a good time to really just kind of share what our process looks like for our clients. And so if you're coming in to this conversation, you're not a current client of ours, you're wondering, hey, what would it look like to see if we can help? And really it's more so a 5 or 6 step process. We want to have just an initial phone call or Zoom meeting, some sort of, one-on-one interaction, 15-30 minutes, and just kind of get to know you, get to know your operation, really just kind of touch on, have a firm understanding of what all you're doing, what your pain points are, your challenges, what are you looking to get out of potentially having a conversation or working for us, making sure we're a good fit. If we get on to that point, we just really want to, unless you're a new venture, just kind of give you a top to bottom review of, hey, this is where your policy is. This is the issues that we see with it. Does it make sense for us to move forward? Like, do these things matter to you if we can come in and fix them? And just kind of setting expectations of, or, hey, you're in a great spot. Not really any value we can bring to the table. And then from there, we'll work with the kind of the information collecting process that we talked about, getting those documents together, completing applications, and then starting to have those conversations with our underwriter. across the board, depending on what your type of operation is. And then from there, just bringing new insurance solutions to the table, and also discussing how we can best be a partner to help, best make use of your risk management with your staff, with how you operate, give you that feedback, and then just from there kind of carry on and move forward as partners together to help your business best be successful and grow in the ways you want it to grow, and not be hampered by your insurance program as much as possible.
Yeah, that's such that analysis and just kind of report back is such a valuable step for people too. I mean, we've had plenty of conversations where it's just like, hey, I just want to understand my current insurance program, where I stand with it. Is it with one of those carriers that says they're providing me a policy but doesn't really provide a lot of coverage? Even if the end of the conversation is like, hey, I don't want to move forward together right now, just having that initial conversation of understanding what your current program is and what the holes may or may not be in it could be really helpful to you when you're going into kind of your new operating season. It's also really helpful, just that analysis step. It comes before any applications are completed, or really any work gets done on your end or the carrier's end. We want to make sure that we're qualifying that opportunity to help before we have you. I know it's everybody's favorite thing is filling out insurance applications. So we try and make sure that we're qualifying opportunity to help before we have you doing anything like that, or before we're bringing in the carrier deep into the conversation either. We want to make sure that we're respectful of everyone's time, and including our own. Let's see, what other questions do we have, guys? Chat is pretty quiet so far.
I've asked you how to follow up there.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing them for some reason. What are you
Something
seeing?
that, yeah, so she says after the waiver, I guess that's partially a Flybook question on if it'll be modified from a signature box to an agree. I don't know if Lindsay or somebody want to add on that, and I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now it is a click to agree box on the waivers that records a timestamp and the IP address that it was logged on, basically. Of course, there's always the option as well to add additional questions beyond first name, last name, birth date, and then those automatically recorded IP and timestamp. So you can add those additional questions on. But yeah, very, very open to PJ's thoughts, very open to Ruthie's thoughts. Waivers are something, I've been in this industry since I was like 18. Now I'm 30 something and proudly 36, and waivers have evolved a lot since I've stepped into this outdoor world. So we're always open to hearing what everybody is hearing from every vantage point, including the insurance vantage point, of course.
I will add one additional thing to the piece on the click versus signature. When we rolled out digital waivers 5 or 6 years ago, we did have it legally reviewed. The electronic checkbox is federally recognized in courts. There's a law or something that was passed. I'm forgetting the name, but it's a click wrap agreement, and so those are withheld in court the same way a signature would.
Thanks, Brenda. Yeah, my thoughts were, it is also kind of a state by state basis on what recreation law is, can vary from state by state, what waivers are acceptable. That's kind of a much broader conversation. So I would think that would really kind of defer to legal counsel there, depending on what state the operation is in. But overall, based on what Brenda's saying, I don't have a huge contention one way or the other.
Yeah. We've seen variations even county to county as well, which is really interesting to think about as we start to layer in all of these kind of different regulations that roll out from small bodies of government all the way up to the federal level. Well, for now, if folks have questions directly for Ruthie and PJ, and we do not have specific questions right now coming through, this is their contact information. They are wonderful to work with. I'll let them speak to the best ways to reach out to them, what their recommendations are for reaching out to them. But I do know that everyone on the call today is a very unique business. And a lot of folks who are on the call today are pretty fresh into the field of really making this everything that you do every day. So they're wonderful resources. PJ and Ruthie, I'll let you close it out for sure. But the advisory team is here for any follow-up with software questions. And then we're just really grateful for your time today, PJ and Ruthie, and being able to partner together on this. It was amazing content and great information.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, so there's our contact information. Don't feel free, don't wonder, hey, do I need to reach out to Ruthie or PJ? Feel free to just email one of us or both of us, and we'll kind of work that out internally. The only clear-cut thing with Ruthie is she does head up our river operator program. So if your operation is based on rafting or river operations, she's definitely going to be the primary contact there. And as I mentioned, I kind of do a little bit of everything in the adventure and entertainment world, but we have an entire team outside of just Ruthie and I. There are 2 or 3 other folks in our office that do specialize in different operations in this space that some of you may have worked with in the past. So don't feel confused. Reach out to any of us, and we're happy to just have a conversation and just let you guys know, hey, you're in a great spot, or hey, here's what the marketplace looks like for you guys right now.
And Flybook, thank you guys so much for having us. As always, you've been a pleasure to work with, and I know that it's just such a great partnership, both of us working and serving the adventure and entertainment industry, and appreciative of what you guys do and the value you bring outside of just software.
Thank you so much.
Likewise.
And this whole crew will be at America Outdoors in Chattanooga in December. So if you find yourself planning to go there already, please come say hello. Everyone on the call will be there. If you are not planning on going, you should. It's great. And we will be hosting, which is really maybe the best part, is a rodeo disco party to close out the conference. So though, yes, we will have great content and we want to always see you in person. That is when we feel we connect with you the best. I know Ruthie and PJ, I'm sure, feel the same about their customer base. We love to see you in person, but the chance to put on a cowboy hat and hold a disco ball is really a great opportunity as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I hope everyone has an amazing rest of your day, and we will be sharing out this recording to the whole customer base. So don't think you need to be jotting things down right now. This will come your way shortly with all the contact information and content that you saw today.
We'll see you all in Chattanooga.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, y'all.